Good morning, everyone. The day after 4th of July, I'm at my happy place. We're up here in northern Wisconsin, and the kids are sleeping. Everyone is sleeping. The lake is really quiet this morning. It's 6:15. I think everyone partied too hard for 4th of July. I wanted to get up early, do a little fishing for you guys, because it's really hard for me to film when I'm up here because the boys just want to always be in the boat with me. So from that standpoint, I got to get up a little bit early and do a little filming. Today, I think we'll probably do a little weedline fishing. You know, this is summer, traditional summer northern fishing. You get on the weed lines, the fish are starting to set up on them anywhere from 6 to 14 feet, depending on the lake you're on. Here, the weed line's more around that 8-foot range. So we're gonna try a little grass weed line fishing, probably show you a different way to fish weed lines. One of my favorite ways that you very, very rarely hear people talk about, but it can be absolutely killer. So let's get out, let's show you a little bit of weedline fishing that I like to do in the North Country. Not a bad one. Chunky. Nice one. And the old Rhino Ned, weedless. So I'm out there fishing these weed lines a little bit differently than a lot of people. So, you know, if you grew up in the Midwest, you know, on a weed line, one of the best baits is your traditional jig head worm, which in a way is pretty much just a straight, kind of the original shaky head, in my opinion. Well, one thing I like to do is throw a Ned rig. So this is the Berkley Maxcent Little General, and then I've got it paired up with the Picasso Weedless Rhino Ned Head. A great combination. It fishes really well. So I mean, I'm fishing this down a lot of visual weed lines. So in this case, we've got a creek channel that comes through here, kind of butts right up against these pads. So I'm just fishing this Ned literally down like the grass line. And because this is the weedless version, you can really fish it clean through a lot of this. You know, you can pop it through, you can swim it through, just like you're fishing a traditional jig head worm, or even a Texas rig. You know, in this case, I've got an 1/8 ounce one. I'm fishing primarily that 6 to maybe 10-foot range, mostly in that probably 6 to 8-foot range. But it's just one of those things where you're just going along, just throwing to the grass line. In some cases, it's a visual grass line, which is what the pads are here. In other cases, it might be the actual cabbage line, or you know, we got a lot of cabbage here. We got some American milfoil, things like that. But I'm just trying to fish areas where we've got our deeper water. This lake is primarily less than 10 foot of water, but you've got these creek channels. There's a couple of creek channels that come in from different areas. We got one that comes out of this bay right here. We got one behind us. And in the summer months, those areas that offer just a little bit deeper water generally are really good places to fish. Little guy for the little general. Not a giant, always fun. A decent one. Not a giant, but we'll take him. Whoa, these are heavy fish. Look at them big old bellies. Nice dark northern strain bass. So let's talk a little bit about the setup here, because I'll get a lot of questions regarding that. So this is just the 1/8 ounce Picasso Rhino Ned, the weedless version. I've got the Max Scent Little General by Berkeley on here, great little trailer. And then I've got that to a 10-pound Berkeley 100% fluorocarbon leader. I'm using a shorter leader here just because we do have a little bit of grass and pads and wood that the fish can get into. So I've got here about it's probably a 6 or 7 foot leader, which is way shorter than I generally go with. And then I've got to pair it up here with a custom built MHX NSJ 872 rod. So it's a 7.3. It's a light medium heavy fast action rod. And then I've got to pair it up with a Xenon MGX spinning reel, super high-end reel by Abu Garcia. This thing is amazing. I know it's expensive, but I absolutely love it. So a bunch of you might be wondering why I'd throw a Ned rig, say, over a traditional Texas rig or a jig and pig, you know, or some sort of worm. And there's a bunch of reasons, to be honest with you. One, so this is 4th of July weekend. And even though I've got the lake to myself right now, it got really pounded the last several days. So from a finesse standpoint, I love throwing a smaller bait. That's one reason like the traditional jig head worm is so good. You know, and that kind of was developed on a lot of pressured lakes like around the Minneapolis area, I feel like. So from that standpoint, that's, you know, the first reason. Another just has to do with the forage species. I mean, generally speaking, we've got panfish, bluegill, small minnows, perch, and that's about it. So the fish generally feed on smaller forage. You know, this is not a big fish fishery. 3-pounders are good here. You know, the tournaments that take place, 12 pounds generally wins. So you're not talking about fishing for giant bass. I wish the lake was full of 6-pounders, but it's not. And then the last just has to do with the weedlessness. You know, when you're fishing a small bait and you've got a lot of grass like I've got here, it tends to come through better than a big bulky bait. So it's just pretty straightforward. For me, it just comes down to, I want to fish something that's efficient. I want to fish something that's going to generate a lot of bites and come through the cover really well. And, you know, a Ned is one of those things where, I don't know, I've been doing this for a long time, and a Ned is something that generates a lot of bites. I think most of us would all agree with that. So the big issue was, how can I fish a Ned through grassy cover? Most people view a Ned rig as a bait that you would fish through, you know, a rock flat or areas that just aren't traditionally nearly as grassy as, say, this. And that was where this Picasso Rhino Ned Head came in. You know, it's got that beautiful titanium weed guard, which, you know, you've heard me talk about on some of the other videos I've done where I really like that weed guard, and it functions extremely well in the grass. And if you look at the Rhino Ned, one of the cool features with this is the head on it. I mean, it looks like a rhino, right? So it's got a part that comes down, kind of locks the worm in place, but then it's got a very, I don't know, pointed head, I guess. So that pointed head does a couple of things. One, it helps with your hook sets. It comes through the fish's mouth better. But two, it also comes through the grass better. If I had just had a traditional round Ned head, that's not going to cut through the grass nearly as well as the Rhino Ned. So this design is really good, and I'm not going to, you know, the design is done by Aaron Martins. It's the Aaron Martins Rhino Ned. So from that standpoint, he was a genius when it came to all this stuff. So I'm not going to question that at all. And, you know, you give it a try and you quickly realize why it is such a good head. And when you see me fishing, I mean, I'm going from fishing an isolated stump like that one out here to there's some grass patches. Now this area, I've kind of got more scattered grass. I've got some lay down trees. I can be really efficient with one bait right here. I don't need to pick up 35 different baits. I can if I want, but I can also just fish one weedless Ned and cover a lot of water. You know, if this were a tournament, yeah, I may have 4 or 5 different rods out. Maybe I'd throw a frog up in some of those lily pads, but at the same time, I can throw this up and literally just yo-yo it in those pads, work it through, and let it fall around. I mean, I'm going to generate almost all the same bites that I would generate if I had 4 or 5 different baits just by throwing this one Ned around. Not a giant, but I'll take you. Oh, God, they are so fat. Just a super healthy fish. Crappie. Everything eats a Ned rig. Walleye, bass, pike, panfish. Everything loves a Ned rig. Crappie number 2. Ooh, that one feels good. Oh yeah, nice one. Nice one. Oh, come here, fish. That's a good one. Top of the mouth. Nice chunky fish. Let him go. Well, guys, I'm gonna head back to the cabin here, get some breakfast. I know the kids are most likely awake, waiting for me. Just want to remind you, don't think a Ned rig is just an open water, clean bottom bait. You can very much fish these in random stuff. I just threw up next to that log over there where you would not be able to throw a traditional Ned rig if you weren't throwing a weedless head like this. Heron Martin's Rhino Ned, the weedless version. If you're able to get this bait into the same places you'd throw a Texas rig or something along those lines. You can even fish it on heavier tackle if you want. You don't have to be throwing it just on some lighter finesse stuff like I am. It's a fantastic presentation that the fish generally don't get to see ever. So just don't be afraid to do it. It really works well for your outside weed lines if you're pitching around some of these little pad holes, things like that. If you got some isolated stumps, grab yourself some of the weedless version. Well, the regular ones work great too, but if you're looking to do what I'm doing, make sure you get some of the weedless version ones. I'll put the link in the video description for you. Otherwise, guys, thanks for tuning in today. I appreciate all of you that watch on a regular basis. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button and stay tuned. We'll have more videos coming out tomorrow.